Upakadamayam Dadanti Sumbadantikam Bandeham Shri Guru Shri Padakam Shri Guru Vaishnavam Vacham Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sadhana Raghunatham Vitantam Shri Jivam Sadvaitam Sadhutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishavatam Vasya He Krishna Karana Sundha Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopikanta Radha Kanta Namastate Takta Kancha Gaurange Radhe Vrindavaneshware Vrishabhana Sudade Pranamani Hari Priye Vanchakalpatrubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare Namaste Stamanamapi Sachi Puchamacha Surupam Rupam Dashagrajam Uruparamatam Gostavatam Radha Kundam Girivaram Auradikamadavayasyam Praptavayasya Pratita Kripaya Shri Guru Danatosmi Gurave Guruchandraya Radhikaya Tadaya Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Bhaktaya Namo Namaha Bande Gurum Yasha Bhaktam Ishyam Yashavatarakam Tat Prakacham Tat Shakti Krishna Chaitanya Samvyakam Bande Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Sahodito Gaudadaipas Bhavantu Chichu Sanditamonadu Chaitanya Charanam Bhoja Mukundulio Bhaji Yesham Parashara Machena Paramatma Bhavat Bande Shri Krishna Chaitanya Bhaktanugraha Kataram Yena Kanapaka Santastam Bhaktatutena Sharaya Bande Shri Krishna Chaitanya Krishna Bhagavatam Hiyas Asvadhyas Vidayam Bhaktam Prema Dikshava Sikshaya Bhangam Lagayati Selam Mukhamavata Akshitam Takribatamam Bande Krishna Chaitanya Ishwaram Durgami Patinayanda Shaskala Padakatemo Swakripayasta Dhanena Shantu Shantavalamba Shri Shri Sanatana Vata Raghunath Shri Jiva Gopal Bhata Dasa Raghunath H.I. Guru Karan Charna Vandana Yahweh Vidvina Savistama Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya So we're reading from Chaitanya Bhagavat. Chaitanya Bhagavat was compiled by Srila Vrindavan Das Thakura. Srila Vrindavan Das Thakura is an incarnation of Srila Vyasadeva. Therefore first we offer our respects to Srila Vyasadeva. So today is the disappearance day of Srila Haridas Thakura, a most important personality. It's interesting to note that when we say the Prema Dwani prayers, the Jaya Vishnu Pad Paramahansa, then he's the only Jiva Tattva we refer to. We say Namacharya Haridas Thakura Ki Jai. So he's the only Jiva Tattva. The rest are all Shakti Tattva, or Krishna himself, or Lord Chaitanya. And in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, there's 2 chapters devoted to Srila Haridas Thakura. 2 entire chapters. This is showing you his importance. And in Chaitanya Bhagavat, there's also a chapter. Chaitanya Bhagavat Adikanda, chapter 16. So I'm going to read from this. Srila Haridas Thakura was born in Bhudhan, and he was born in a Muslim family. And you may wonder why. Why was Haridas Thakura, who was given the name the Namaracharya, born in a Muslim family? So Vrindavandas Thakura gives the example. Just as Prahlad was born in the family of demons, and just as Hanuman was born in the family of monkeys, but still both were pure devotees, Mahabhagavats. So Haridas Thakura was born in the family of Muslims, but still he's Mahabhagavat. One of the things that Lord Chaitanya wanted to introduce 500 years ago was a social revolution. And he did this by inviting or encouraging people from different sects and different varnas. In other words, you're a Sudra, you're a Vaishya, you're a Kshatriya, or you're a Sannyasi, Brahmin. Still you can join in Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Sankirtan movement. At that time in India, the caste of Brahmins were very powerful. So the caste of Brahmins, their philosophy, their belief is that to be a Brahmin, you have to be born into a Brahmin family. So Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu preached against this, and one of the ways he did this was by making Haridas Thakura a Namaracharya, born in Muslim family. There's no information of his father and mother, and there's no real information of his Diksha Guru, because we can say Lord Chaitanya was his Guru, but there's no information of him even receiving initiation from Lord Chaitanya. So there doesn't appear to be any information of his Diksha Guru, but from a very early age he started to chant Hare Krishna. And he left his family in Budwan, went to Pulia. Pulia is near Shantipur. Pulia is the place, apparently, Tamil Krishna Maharaj, when he left his body, was driving right next to Pulia. So he went to a cave in Pulia on the bank of the Ganges, and there he used to chant 300,000 names a day. So I'll just read a few verses, and then we'll talk more about some of his pastimes. Haridas, Chaitanya Bhagavat, chapter 16, text 21. In the association of Advaita Prabhu, Haridas Thakura floated in the waves of ocean of Krishna consciousness. See, Advaita Acharya lived in Shantipur. When you arrive in Calcutta and you take a bus or a taxi or a train and you drive to Navadvip, you go past Shantipur. You go past Shantipur. Shantipur is maybe 20 or 30 kilometers away. When Bhaktivinoda Thakura was the magistrate in Shantipur. Text 22. Haridas would continually wander on the banks of the Ganges while loudly chanting the names of Krishna. Text 23. Haridas was most renounced in the matter of material enjoyment, and his mouth was always beautified with the chanting of Lord Krishna's name. So the holy name was dancing on his tongue. Text 24. He did not give up chanting the names of Govinda for even a moment, and as a result he was constantly manifesting various ecstatic symptoms. One time Prabhupada told Vishnu John Swami, he said, you should chant Krishna's name all the time. When you're walking, when you're sleeping, when you're eating, in your mind or out aloud, you chant all the time. Rupa Goswami also states, Tanama Rupa Chiratadi Sukhitenu. The goal of life is 24 hours a day to engage the mind and the tongue and always chanting Krishna's name. We always have the Maha Mantra going on in the mind. It's always going on. Even though our lips may not be moving, the Maha Mantra should be going on within our mind. But this is not an easy thing to achieve. One has to have taste, ruchi. And also one of the symptoms of bhav, avyakta kalatvam, is one does not waste any time. One is always remembering Krishna. Text 25. Sometimes he danced alone. Sometimes he roared like a mad lion. Sometimes he cried loudly. Sometimes he laughed loudly. Sometimes he roared loudly. Sometimes he fell to the ground, unconscious. So these are sanchari bhavs, vibhichari bhavs. These are different emotions that wake up within your heart. So, why does one fall unconscious? There's two types. Stamba means you're stunned. But then you're usually conscious, but you're not able to talk. Pralaya means devastation. So murchita means you faint. So at least in relationship to the gopis, it's described that on certain occasions the Brijbasis, Mother Yasoda and the gopis would feel so much separation from Krishna that they would faint. So it's described in the ocean of separation is the island of Muchita. And Muchita means to faint. So within that ocean of separation, so you don't drown, there's an island. What is that island? The island of Muchita, becoming unconscious. Sometimes Haridas Thakura would utter unnatural sounds, for which he would later give profound meanings. He manifested all the different ecstatic symptoms like crying, hair standing on end, laughing, losing consciousness, and perspiring. Yes, so these are the astika sattvika bhavs. When a devotee, a highly advanced devotee, comes in contact with Suddha Sattva, then he exhibits asta sattvika bhavs. Asta means 8. Vikara, 8 transformations of love of God. Like weeping, shivering, hair standing on end, choking off the voice, trembling, becoming stunned, perspiring, and pralaya, devastation. So Haridas Thakura is a very advanced devotee. He is an incarnation of Lord Brahma. Lord Brahma, the first created living entity in this universe. Lord Brahma, the most intelligent living entity in this universe. See, according to Bhagavad theology, we did not start with the most primitive, as is in Darwin's theory, that we start with the most primitive amoeba, single-celled amoeba, and that gradually evolves to at some point or other it evolves to a fish. and then the fish becomes a sardine, becomes a flying fish, starts flying out of the sea. Frog climbs out of the sea, and then it finally becomes a mammal, like a monkey, and then becomes a human being called Phoenix Man. So according to Darwin's theory, principles of natural selection, we evolved, the body evolved. But according to Bhagavat, the body did not evolve. The first created being was Lord Brahma, and he was the most intelligent. And Brahma created sons, mental sons. He simply thought of having children, and suddenly they manifested. He didn't have to undergo, seminal discharge, pregnancies, and all this stuff. Marichi was one of his sons. Atreya Muni was another one. Narada Muni was another one. And then these different Prajapatas created progeny. Text 30. As soon as Haridas began to dance, these symptoms would all manifest in his body. Haridas's entire body became wet as tears of love flowed from his eyes. Even staunch atheists would offer him respect. Now we shouldn't think that these are exaggerations. When we say tears flowed from his eyes, then it was like the Ganges. It was like the Yamuna flowing from his eyes. It's not an exaggeration. And everyone nearby would become drenched, wet, from the tears flowing from the eyes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Srila Haridas Thakura when they were experiencing love of God. Text 32. Even Brahma and Shiva were satisfied to see the wonderful manifestation of Haridas Thakura's hair standing on end. While Haridas Thakura resided in Pulia, everyone developed great faith in him. Haridas would regularly take bath in the Ganges and then loudly chant the name of Lord Hari. The Qazi went to the king of Bengal and complained about Haridas. So the Qazi was the Muslim magistrate. It's understood that this Qazi was an incarnation of Kamsa. You know who is Kamsa. And the king of Bengal, Hussein Shah, was an incarnation of Jarasandha. In Krishna Lila, Jarasandha was the father-in-law of Kamsa. Jarasandha used to capture princes and kings and offer them in human sacrifice. So Jarasandha used to offer human sacrifice to Bhadrakali. But in Krishna Lila, Bhima killed Jarasandha. And of course Krishna himself killed Kamsa. So in Gaur Lila, this same Kamsa became the Qazi. So the Qazi went to the king and said, Haridas is a Muslim, but he follows the religion of the Hindus. Please call him and consider this case. Hearing the words of the sinful Qazi, the king, the sinful king, immediately called for Haridas. By the mercy of Krishna, Haridas was not afraid of death personified. What to speak of the Muslim rulers? Chanting the names of Krishna, he immediately went to see the king. Hearing about Haridas Thakura's departure to see the king, pious persons felt morose in the midst of their happiness. I'm reading translations now. When the respectable persons in prison heard that Haridas had come to see the king, they became pleased at heart. So Haridas Thakura was put into prison. So when he was put into prison, the other prisoners became very happy because they thought, now a great saintly person has come and he will bless us. Asuvat. What's Asuvat? Asavad means? Manish? Blessings. Means blessings in Hindi. Yeah, blessings. So the prisoners thought that they would get blessings. Now what blessings did they want? Freedom. They wanted to get out of jail. So Haridas Thakura, seeing the lotus feet of Haridas Thakura, all the prisoners offered obeisances to him. When Haridas saw the prisoners, he mercifully smiled at them. With a curious smile, Haridas gave them an ambiguous blessings. Stay here, stay as you are now. He said, stay as you are now. Unable to understand his words, the prisoners felt morose. Haridas Thakura said, you have not understood the meaning of my blessing, and therefore you are lamenting. I never award inauspicious benedictions. Carefully try to understand. As your minds are presently fixed on Krishna, let them stay that way forever. So Haridas Thakura was saying, may you remain as you are forever. Because at that particular moment, they were Krishna conscious. They were thinking of Krishna. So Haridas Thakura said, let it be that you remain like that. But the prisoners were thinking, oh, he's cursing us to stay in prison. But the point is, this whole material world is a prison house, is it not? So if you're living in prison and you're thinking of Krishna, that's more favorable than being a free citizen engaging in Maya. Am I correct? There was one devotee, one of my godbrothers, who he was a devotee, but unfortunately he got into Maya and he ended up going to prison. And in prison he was chanting 64 rounds a day, which is good. But when he got released, he stopped chanting 64. He stopped chanting 64 rounds. So it would have been better if he had actually stayed in prison. And I remember years ago one person went to prison. In prison they had a Krishna book. And they used to read the Krishna book every day. And they were determined to become devotees when they left prison. And when they left prison, they came and they stayed in the temple for a few weeks. But then they got into Maya. So better you stay in prison and chant Krishna's name all day long than be a nonsense as a so-called free citizen. So Haridas Thakura said, in prison you have no envy or trouble from others. I was thinking about this. When you're in prison, no one envies you and no one gives you any trouble. But when you're living in Phoenix, your next door neighbors, they envy you and everyone gives you trouble, including your mother-in-law. But it's unlikely she would also be in prison, because she could be in the cell next door. If you return to material enjoyment, my dear prisoners, by bad association, you'll forget everything about Krishna. One cannot achieve love for Krishna as long as he is engaged in sense gratification. You should know for certain that Krishna is far away from such persons. Therefore, I did not mean stay here in prison, but rather stay free from thoughts of material enjoyment and always chant the name of Hari. There's one man, I've referred to him before, his name is Devraj. I forget his last name. Anyhow, some years ago, around about 1991 or 2 or 93 or something, he shot his wife and he got put into prison. So he was supposed to have been, it was 1990, it was during apartheid time. He shot his wife. He didn't like it. She was very angry. She used to attack him, actually. She used to attack him. So one day he shot her. And he also shot his daughter, but he doesn't remember it. Anyhow, he went to prison and he was on death row in Pretoria. And he used to write to me. And then when Nelson Mandela came as president of South Africa, he abolished the death penalty. So he was transferred to Westville Maximum Prison, where he's been living ever since. And he preaches to other fellow prisoners. I write to him now and again. And he's the ideal prisoner. When the prison authorities have people visit, then they always take them to his cell, because he's the ideal prisoner. So he told me that he's going to be released in maybe another 5 or 6 years. So it'll be interesting to see what he does. Whether he's going to continue chanting Krishna's name or whether he'll get bewildered by Maya. Because at the moment, he was chanting 16 rounds and he had like a little Narmahata going in Westville Prison. It'll be interesting to see when he is released what direction he goes in. So Haridas Thakura went before the king. When the king saw Haridas Thakur's brilliant effulgence, he respectfully offered him a seat. Then the king inquired, "My dear brother, why do you have such a mentality? By good fortune, you've been born a Muslim. Why do you follow the practice of the Hindus? We Muslims do not even eat rice that has been touched by Hindus. So why are you degrading yourself? You've been born in a high family. How will you attain salvation? Whatever sinful activities you are knowingly performed can only be cleared by uttering Kalma. K-A-L-M-A. Kalma is a statement from the Quran indicating the acceptance of Muhammad's Islam religion. So when you become a Muslim, you recite the Kalma. And the Kalma is a section of the Quran, which means you've accepted it. So the king is saying, you must please repent your sinful ways and recite the Kalma. After hearing the king, who was illusioned by Maya, Haridas laughed and said, "How wonderful the illusory energy acts." And then he said, "My dear king, the Supreme Lord is all. The Supreme Lord of all is one without a second. The Hindus and Muslims differentiate the Lord only by name, but in spiritual vision the Lord is one. This is confirmed in the Puranas and the Quran." So then Haridas Thakur started preaching to the king, saying God is one. The God of the Muslims is the same as the God of the Hindus, just different names. Just like a human being may have different names, God has many different names. You may call him Allah, you may call him Ram or Krishna. What is the difference? It's just the name of God. So Haridas Thakur fearlessly started preaching to the king. And then he started saying to the king, actually, we're all puppets. You're a puppet, I'm a puppet, and we're acting according to the direction of the Lord. This is confirmed in Bhagavatam. Loka, Yosa, Daya Maya, Dadu Maya, Yata. Loka means this entire world. Loka means this world. Dadu, doll. Yosa Maya, wooden doll. Everyone is like a wooden doll in the hands of the puppet master. Krishna is the supreme puppet master. He's pulling the strings, and we're moving this way, that way, this way, up, down, down, up. So Haridas Thakura starts preaching to the king. Text 79. Lord Krishna induces everyone to work in a particular way, and everyone in the entire world acts accordingly. The names and qualities of the Lord are chanted by everyone according to their respective scriptural injunctions. The Supreme Lord accepts the devotion of everyone, but if anyone is envious of his children, then he retaliates. So now Haridas Thakura is warning the king, don't be envious. Don't be envious. Then he says, I am acting under the inspiration of the Supreme Lord. So this is confirmed. Everyone is like a puppet, and the Lord pulls us this way, pulls us that way. The other day I went to see one gentleman, he's a doctor, and for 10 years he used to drive past our temple, Radhanath, to go to R.K. Khan's hospital. For 10 years, he never went to the temple. One day, he decided, let me go to the temple. After 10 years. Now he's chanting 8 rounds every day. He's vegetarian, and his wife is chanting 16 rounds. So for 10 years, he looks at the temple. It accumulates pious activity. After 10 years, so if he went to work, coming and going, 20 times, how many times? 6 times, 12 times, 12 times a week, so 800 times a year, 8,000 times. 8,000 times he goes past the temple and he sees it. Then suddenly, Krishna inspires him, stop, go into the temple, see what they're doing. So this word inspiration, the Lord inspires us in different ways. So Haridas Thakura is saying, I am being inspired by Lord Krishna to chant Hare Krishna. And then Haridas Thakura gives an example, text 83. By his own desire, a Hindu Brahmin may become a Muslim. But what can the Hindus do? That is his karma. If one is already dead, what is the use of killing him? Dear sir, Haridas Thakura is saying, my dear king, now you may judge. If I am at fault, you may punish me. Herein, Haridas Thakura's conclusive statements, the Muslims are all satisfied. However, the sinful Qazi said, punish him, punish him, punish him. So it seems like this Qazi was a real rascal, and he wanted him to be punished. So, then Haridas Thakura says, then the king requested Haridas, brother, just recite the confession from the Quran, that's the Kalma, and you'll have nothing to worry. Otherwise the sinful Qazi will punish you, and you'll be forced to recite the Quran anyhow. In this way you'll be humiliated. Haridas Thakura said, one cannot do anything other than what the Supreme Lord desires. One cannot do anything except what the Supreme Lord desires. Know for certain the Lord awards the results of one's offences. And then Haridas Thakura made a very bold statement. Even if my body is cut into pieces and I give up my life, I will never give up the chanting of the Lord's holy name. So he told that to the Changazi. Even if you kill me, even if you cut my body into many pieces, I will never give up chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare replied, "He should be beaten in 22 marketplaces. Take his life away. That is my opinion. And if he survives in 22 marketplaces, then we'll understand that actually he's knowledgeable and his words are true." So he was dragged off to a marketplace where he was whipped. And the idea he would be whipped till dead. And then they went to another marketplace and they tried to whip him. And this carried on for 22 marketplaces. So while he was being whipped, Haridas remembered the name of Krishna. And on account of that ecstatic remembrance, he felt no pain. So Haridas Thakura felt no pain. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita. Machchata savadurgani mat prasada tarashyasi atache tvam ahankaram nasho shashi vinakasyasi. If you always think of me, you'll pass over all the obstacles, all the pain, all the misery of this material world. But if you act out of false ego, not hearing me, you'll be lost. So, our solution is to always think of Krishna, and then we'll pass over the obstacles. We're not going to be whipped in 22 marketplaces. Velen Marketplace, Tongat Marketplace, Phoenix Marketplace, Warwick Avenue. It's not likely to happen. But people may say rude things to us. People may be sarcastic towards us. People may even attack us. Unlikely they're going to try to kill us. But sometimes you get hijacked. Something happens, someone tries to kill. So our solution is to always think of Krishna. And the two examples, Prahlad Maharaj and Haridas Thakura, they simply thought of Krishna and they transcended. They did not feel any pain. Haridas Thakura was not feeling any pain, although he was beaten in 22 marketplaces. By the mercy of Krishna, Haridas felt no pain whatsoever in spite of such heavy beating. The scriptures explain that Prahlad felt no pain when he was also beaten by the demons. In the same way, Srila Haridas Thakura felt no pain as he was being beaten by the Muslims. What to speak of Haridas, even one who remembers his activities is immediately relieved of all material miseries. Now this is very interesting. This gives us an insight, this next verse gives us an insight into how a pure devotee thinks. So how does the pure devotee think? Haridas Thakura felt sorry for the sinful gods who were engaged in beating him, and he prayed, "Oh my dear Lord Krishna, be merciful on these living entities. Forgive their offenses of torturing me." See, so this is how the pure devotee thinks. Can you imagine someone comes to kill you and they're giving you pain, and then you pray to Krishna, "Please forgive them. They don't know what they're doing." The example also is with Jesus Christ. When Jesus Christ was on the cross, he also prayed and said, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they are doing." So you can see now, you can make a contrast. One person says something rude to us, and what do? Immediately we're angry. "What do you mean? Don't you know who I am? I'm so-and-so from Phoenix. I've been chanting Hare Krishna for 1 year. I'm almost new to the Bhagavad. How dare you speak like this to me? I'm going to tell my guru. I'm going to tell the GBC. I'm going to take you to court." But Haridas Thakura is being beaten. He's being tortured. And he prays, "Please forgive my tormentors." He prays to Krishna. Now later on, in the Chaitanya Bhagavat, later on in the Chaitanya Bhagavad, Lord Chaitanya, in the Mahaprakash form, he says to Haridas Thakur, when you were being beaten to death, I would have come with my disc, and I would have immediately killed these tormentors. But you were praying that I not come, so I couldn't come. But I was ready to come with my Sudarshan Chakra and kill these tormentors. Lord Chaitanya said this in the Mahaprakash chapter of Madhya Lila. And then Lord Chaitanya said, so what I did was, instead I took the punishment on my back. And then Lord Chaitanya turned around and showed Haridas Thakur all the whip marks. And all the whip marks were on Lord Chaitanya's back instead. And then Haridas Thakur fell on the ground unconscious out of appreciation and ecstasy for Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. This is a little later on in Chaitanya Bhagavad. So Haridas Thakur prays, O Krishna, be merciful on these living entities. Forgive their offences of torturing me. The guards beat him severely in order to kill him, but Haridas was not even disturbed by their beating. The Muslims were astonished to see this. Can a human being survive after such a beating? If we beat someone in 2 or 3 marketplaces, they die. But we have beaten him in 22 marketplaces. This is interesting. This reminds me of one devotee. He lived in Russia and he lived in Ukraine. Some or other he became my disciple. So he was mentally disturbed. He went through severe depression and he overdosed. So he took pills. Now ordinarily if you take 10 of these pills, you die. So he took 70. 7 times as much. And then to make it worse, he took a bottle of vodka. Because if you mix drugs with alcohol, it becomes worse. He went into a coma for 3 days. And the doctors said, look, either he's going to die, but if he lives, he'll be mentally deranged. 1 week later, he came to the festival, talking, walking, laughing, joking. Nothing was wrong with him at all. 1 year later, he got initiated. When he got initiated, I told him, what are the 4 vows? And I said, add a 5th one. I will not commit suicide. So, sometimes things happen to devotees which can't really be explained. So here we see Haridas Thakur being beaten in 22 marketplaces. The Muslims then said, O Haridas, if we cannot kill you, then we will be killed. Although we've beaten you so much, you're still alive. Therefore the Qazi will kill us. Haridas Thakur smiled. He smiled and said, if my remaining alive creates a problem for you, then I will give up my body right now. After saying this, Haridas Thakur entered into deep meditation on Krishna. Haridas Thakur was endowed with all mystic powers. Then he became motionless, and his breathing stopped. Seeing this, the Muslims were struck with wonder, and they took the lifeless body of Haridas before the king. The king said, bury him. But the Chandkazi said, no, if you bury him, he will attain a high destination, because the Muslims bury him. So the Chandkazi said, no, he does not deserve a high destination. Throw his body in the Ganges instead. So they threw his body in the Ganges. But just before they threw his body in the Ganges, Haridas Thakur exhibited a mystic power, and his body became very heavy. became so heavy that they couldn't move it. But then suddenly it became light. They threw it in the Ganges. Then his body floated down the water to Pulya. And then he swam across the Ganges. He got out and he continued chanting Hare Krishna. He was living in a cave in Pulya. So, a little later on, when the Muslims realized he was still alive, they said, sometime later, Haridas met the king of Bengal and laughed. Can you imagine laughing at the king of Bengal? With great awe and reverence, the king folded his hands and said to Haridas, "Now I know for certain you're a powerful saint, for you are firmly convinced the Supreme Lord is one. O sir, I have personally come to meet you, therefore please forgive all my offences. You are equal to everyone, both friend and enemy, but there is no one in the three worlds who can understand you." Then the king said, "You are free to go wherever you wish. You may go stay in a cave on the bank of Ganges or whatever you desire. Now you may stay wherever you like and do whatever you please." So, Haridas Thakura, he said, the reason why I was beaten in 22 marketplaces is because I've heard so much blasphemy of the Lord. That is why he's punished me. He said, I am satisfied with whatever happened to me was for my benefit. The Lord has relieved me of my great offense by awarding me a token punishment. So this is how Haridas Thakura thought. Haridas Thakura thought, I'm receiving a token punishment. So this is how we should think also. If something happens to us, that I'm receiving a token punishment, that I should have received a lot worse, but Krishna has minimized it. Now text 171, the Yavanas who had beaten Haridas, as well as their families, were all destroyed within a few days. In the Skanda Purana it is said, whoever kills or blasphemes a Vaishnava, whoever is envious or angry with a Vaishnava, and whoever does not offer obeisances or feel joy upon seeing a Vaishnava, certainly falls into a hellish condition. The Yavanas means meat eaters, along with their families, were soon destroyed by severe diseases like cholera and smallpox. So this is also important, that the tormentors who tried to kill Haridas Thakura, not only they, but also their families. See, this is how it works, that if you are pious, Krishna conscious, you can benefit your family, living and deceased. But if you're sinful, your family also get reaction. But if you're a pure devotee, it's a bit different, like Prahlad Maharaj. His family was sinful, but he wasn't affected. But for lesser devotees, if you're attached to someone who's very advanced, then that attachment results in you making advancement. But it works the other way also. If you are attached to someone who's sinful, like Kamsa, or Jarasandha, or Chankazi, or Hussein Shah, or Saddam Hussein. If you are attached to someone who's sinful, then you also get a reaction. So not only the Yavanas died from smallpox and cholera and similar diseases, but also their families died. Then Haridas Thakura went and found a cave on the bank of the Ganges. He remembered Krishna day and night as he resided alone in the cave. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta writes, sometimes he would chant the 16 names softly. Every day he would complete the chanting of 300,000 names, or in a year he would chant 100 million names of Krishna. 100 million names of Krishna. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakura also took a vow after he got initiated to chant 1 billion names. So if you chant 100 million a year, it takes 10 years to chant 1 billion. So from about 1904, 1905 to about 1915, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta was chanting every day 300,000 names of God. And then after that he preached. 1918 he started his Gaudiya Math, started preaching. So Srila Haridas Thakura is a wonderful example of a great saint. We should pray to him, we should think about him, and he will help us in our chanting. So our chanting becomes pure. Without doubt, our most important activity is to chant every day. So many things you may do, like eat, sleep. You may think your job and your studies are important. You may think your husband and wife and children are important. It's all relative, has relative importance. But what is of absolute importance is the chanting of Hare Krishna. So we must really take this very seriously. Pray to Srila Haridas Thakura that we can push aside the obstacles. Just like Haridas Thakura, he pushed aside the obstacles. So you must push aside the obstacles. And your obstacles will not be as bad as his obstacles. Am I correct in saying that? You're not going to get the same types of obstacles that he got. Your obstacles will be a lot more simple, easier to deal with. So we must push these obstacles aside and carry on the path of chanting fixed number of rounds every day. It's essential. Fixed number. Sankhya Purva by numerical strength. By a fixed number of rounds, 4 rounds every day, 8 rounds every day, 16 rounds every day, 20 rounds every day. We get strength. But you have to do it every day. Sometimes you don't feel like it. Doesn't matter. Still you do it. Numerical strength. Srila Haridas Thakura ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Go Premanandi. Does anyone have any questions I'd like to ask? Yesterday was also the appearance day of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Unfortunately, we didn't speak about him, but of course, equally as important as Haridas Thakur. Bhaktivinoda Thakur is described as the pioneer of Krishna consciousness in the Western world. Do you have a question?
Maharaj, you were just mentioning that if somebody is impious, it also affects the family. In the case of Bali Maharaj, son of Prahlad Maharaj, how did that happen?
You see, it's not a question of having someone in the family who's impious. It's a question of whether you're attached. So you can have a father, a mother, you can have family members. Cancer can be your uncle. But it depends whether you're attached to him or not. And it's the attachment which transfers either the good or the bad. So Bali Maharaj was unattached to his demoniac family members, like Vibhusana was unattached to Ravana. So he didn't get the same result Ravana got. It's a question of attachment. Every sane man knows that attachment to the material is the greatest entanglement for the spirit soul. But when that same attachment is transferred to the liberated souls, it opens the doors of liberation. Moksha, dwaram upavatam, Lord Kapila Dev's instructions. So we want to transfer our attachment to liberated souls like Srila Prabhupada, etc. Any other questions? Take it.
So what we're going to do now is Lala Haridas's birthday, and you're saying something about the deity?
Oh, I should mention that.
Yeah, I don't know.
In the Bible, short kirtan.
Yes. Are we going to bring the deity forward or leave the deity on the altar?
We do it for happy birthday song.
We normally do.
Well, then I think we should lead everyone.
Now?
So I just mentioned that on the altar here is a very interesting deity of Haridas Thakura, carved out of Siddhubaku. Siddhubaku is the tree in which Haridas Thakura used to sit under and chant 3 lakhs every day. These beads are also Siddhubaku. And there's one man, actually his father and the son, who carved these deities in Jagannath Puri. So some or other, Rupanuga Prabhu got this by the grace of Indraduna Maharaj and Suren Vallabhji. So it's a deity of Haridas Thakura, and it looks like him. When I looked at it, it's the same picture of Haridas Thakura that's in his Bhajan Kutia and in his Samadhi. So it is Haridas Thakura. Every January I spend about a month in Puri, and so this so you can, at the end, if you want to come up, no fear of obeisances, you can just look at it. Oh, so it's also, you should take it.
We'd like to call on the Haridas boat. Maybe a little bit of a surprise for her.
Is it anyone else's birthday today also?
And also, is there anybody else's birthday today? Okay, so we have 2 devotees' birthdays today. We can call them both to the front, and they can both cut their cake. But let me tell you a little bit about Mother Haridas. She's like one of the foremost devotees here in Phoenix when it comes to deity worship. For all of our major festivals, she takes the time to sew the deity's outfits for Lord Jagannath, Lord Subhadra, for Krishna's table. We had those deities that we used to draw from one of the members. So she sews the outfits for the deities and make all the nice arrangements to worship the Lord in that way. So if anybody here feeling the devotees want to learn to sew outfits for Srila Prabhupada and deities, then you can contact Lord Haridas. I'm sure she'll be glad to teach you. Because very soon, in the near future, there will be deities in Phoenix and devotees have to be trained up in this aspect. Sewing the Lord's outfits. So I'd like to thank Lord Haridas for the wonderful service, and I'd like to also glorify her on that Women's Day. So I'd like to call it forward and the other Mataji, please come and grab the key.
The other lady is...
I don't know her name. Let me just find out the name.
So I'd like to call on also Madhava Sandhi, please come.
ceased.
Hare Krishna, so we chant Hare Krishna while we're cutting the cake. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. His Holiness Bhakti Saraswati Maharaj ki jai.
Short title. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta